Okay, so there's this girl. We started dating towards the end of high school. I had like one long relationship and then that ended. And so then I found this new girl, and new girl and I were from similar high schools. We were going to the same college. And so I thought, all I need to do is just not screw this up. And I can probably trick this girl into marrying me. And it's like most how 17-year-olds, think at this time. Yeah. And so we date over the summer, super fun, not a serious thing, but just having fun together. And right before we move away to college, I'm preaching a sermon at a church. It's like the third time I've ever preached ever. I'm nervous. She texts me saying, "Hey, when you get back from preaching the Lord's work, can we talk?" And I was like, "Don't you know I'm preaching right now?" And so I come back, we talk. She dumps me at one of my favorite places in Waco, and I throw up in the bushes, and I'm like crying and vomiting, whatever. And so right before we move into this very small university where I know I'm going to see her all the time for the next 4 years, she's like, "Hey, I'm going to be on campus at like 3:00. Can you come by and help just unload a few things?" And I'm like, "Sure, baby, I'll be right there." And so I go and unload all of her stuff, move her in her dorm, and she says, "Thanks," and she pats me on the shoulder, and she says, "Ryan's on his way over, so I've got to go." And Ryan was her new boyfriend, who she dated for 2 years before she dated me in the middle.
Oh, wow.
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 Buddy.
Dating and the path to marriage can be tough and marred with disappointment. I think Kelly has a story to share about awkwardness in dating.
It's probably going to be a quick story. So like our current generation, I went to the social medias to find a potential mate.
Mm-hmm.
So I matched with someone, and we basically went on dates like every 2 weeks or so for about like 3 months, and then all of a sudden he ghosted me. So I guess like the reason why it's so weird is because he didn't have any like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. So I never really confirmed that he was telling me the truth the entire time, but I was just goo goo gaga eyes.
Because he was Captain America.
Right, supposedly. Yeah, supposedly. His line of
Allegedly.
work was like allegedly like more like military based, and so every time, the reason why we would have like a date every 2 weeks or so is because he'd be on missions and stuff like that. So you can imagine me just being like, "Oh yes, please just save the world, thank you."
I love that.
You take some notes.
Oh, man.
No, but it did not end well. I really don't know what ended up happening. I hope he's okay out there. I really don't know.
I love that.
Wherever he may be.
I don't know.
Sometimes like, so how are you?
Oh, man.
God bless G.I. Joe.
Well, this is season 3 of the Equip Roundtable. We are talking about what it means to follow Jesus, how to be a Christ follower in 2020. And so when Joey asked me to lead this and to invite some friends, I was really excited. His question was really simple. I wonder what it looks like for single people to follow Jesus in 2020. And being the table pastor that I am and having y'all's backs, I quickly retorted, "It's the same as for married people. You just follow Jesus." But there is some peculiarities and some distinctives about what it looks like for you guys to follow Jesus. And so I like to use the term unmarried versus single. Single sounds like you're defining yourself by what you don't yet have. We don't do this in any other world outside of our own. And so just at this table, we've got people who are at various levels of dating and pursuing marriage, people that have had breakups, people that are in serious relationships, people that are waiting, and so a good mix. But all of you three are in this batch of being unmarried, and Haley and I will celebrate 10 years of marriage in a few months. And so excited about that. One of the favorite things about my job is seeing people like you guys find the people that God has for you and begin to start that journey as well. And so that's kind of who's here today. Excited to start this conversation with y'all. As we think about what it looks like to follow Jesus as an unmarried person, what does it look like for you guys to live your life now through this Christ-centered lens, living a Christ-centered life while being unmarried?
I think for me, it's easy to like overcomplicate things with, I think just anyone can overcomplicate things, whether it's like I got to be in prayer or have devotional time or be doing X, Y, and Z and just keep my schedule full. And so what I tend to do is just to simplify things. I don't want to use the word dumb anything down because that's just not what we're doing. But to simplify it, and I keep going back to some of Jesus' first words, Sermon on the Mount, and it's seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness. And there's not an exclusion clause for that, being unmarried or not. And so that's where I generally find my focus in. and where it draws me to. And I just have to remind myself, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm dating or working or enjoying a hobby, like what is it about? What's my purpose and what's my drive behind it? Is it self, or is kingdom really first in this? Is his righteousness really part of it? And I think that verse helps ground me too. It's rich in theology. There's this idea of repentance in there, this idea of humility. It tells us who we are as the unrighteous and who he is as the righteous. But there's a hope in that too, that we've been buried with him and our righteousness now rests with him. It kind of just draws me in on that. And so it's part of that for me is I want to understand that. I want to make sure people in my life understand that as well. And that's what we're doing. So if I'm meeting someone one-on-one with coffee or whatnot, I want that to be the center of what we're doing for sure.
Yeah, that's good. And that's sort of regardless of wherever you're at, relationship status, right? Those things are true. That's good. Thanks, Joel. Sarah, what about you? What comes to mind?
So when I was reading this question, I kind of thought that this qualifier as an unmarried person can be as a professional in the hospital, as a professional in the workplace, or as a stay-at-home mom, or as a pastor of a church. Like, what does God want us to do, basically? And so I just know that God calls us to be good stewards of our time and to seek him first, and to have the same amount of prayer, the same amount of being involved in church in every stage of our life, kind of, and that there's no qualifier that changes the game for any of us. It's just we're called to do what God tells us to do at every stage of our life. And so the qualifier doesn't really matter per se.
Yeah, what I hear both of you saying is there's not these caveats to these commands in Scripture. Like when Jesus says, follow me, it's not like, well, here's the married person track and here's the single person track. And there are occasionally distinctives in Scripture for what that looks like. But for the most part, what I hear you guys saying is you just follow Jesus like anybody else would. Kelly, anything to add here?
Yeah, so kind of like Joel, I think I overcomplicated what being Christ-centered really is, and so I went to Google, as one does.
A resident social media expert.
Right. I found a blog post by Paul Tripp, just
Killer
kind of,
mustache.
yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
His mustache
I know, I
is
didn't
on
see
Twitter
his face,
site.
but,
Oh man,
but I
it's like,
believe you.
he like has bow ties. He buttons his shirt all the way up, and
It's
he's got this
amazing.
thick mustache.
That's
It was
amazing.
great.
It's a power move.
So just think of that when you're reading his Google article.
Okay,
Sorry,
great.
continue.
Because
Sure got
so he
for
kind of
real.
like kind of listed and broke it down like as to exactly what that it was and kind of what Joel and Sarah were saying. He kind of like just simplified it for me with like a set of questions like near the end of the blog, basically just to see like is your life more Christ-centered? And the questions were like, is Christ my source for life? Is he the motivation for everything I do? Is his glory my goal? Is he my hope for both today and tomorrow and eternity? And so, kind of like what has been going on in the conversation that we're having, my individual journey with Christ kind of resonates with those questions, is like whether that involves my career, my family, my friends, basically just everything that I do. And the interesting thing though, like I guess like as a single person now being in a relationship with someone, it's like, how does that work in a relationship, like being Christ-centered? And then just working, with my boyfriend and seeing like, how can we be Christ-centered in this relationship? It's kind of interesting because, when you're dating and you're moving towards like marriage, you want to make sure that like you're equally yoked. And I think that also like goes along with like maybe someone's definition of what Christ-centered really looks like.
Yeah,
and so, so obviously like communication, like within that relationship to see whether our like definitions line up and like whether we're after the same thing. So that's been kind of like an interesting new twist to like what being Christ-centered is, like at least in a relationship standpoint. And so it's basically we just want to glorify Jesus and display him for the world to see, like in our dating relationship, and hopefully like moving towards like marriage, like we can display that even further. But that's just been something that's been going on like in my unmarried person life right now.
I like it. Yeah, and so in 1 Corinthians 7, Paul's writing, it's the longest sort of passage about singleness. He has this verse at the end where he talks about how married people are anxious about the concerns of their spouse, like as they rightfully should be. And so when I think about, hey, when someone invites me to do something on Friday night, my first thought is always like, okay, what's Haley doing? Can we go? Can we not go? You know, whatever. But then he says the single person is only anxious for the things of the Lord. And so people use this verse to then think that you guys must be doing ministry like 5, 6, 12 nights a week. And so one of our other core values of our church is outward focused. And so what does it look like for you guys now as unmarried people to live an outward focused life? And maybe talk about like what it doesn't look like. Because I know all three of you have commitments and lives and friends and responsibilities, and some of you have mortgages. And so like it's not all that different from some of our other folks. But what does an outward focused life look like for y'all right now?
So I don't think that there's any difference. I'm coming from the perspective, like, there's no difference. We are also supposed to be outward focused and like being involved in ministries and things like that. The difference is that many people may think that I have a lot more time than someone else who has a family, which is fair. I mean, I probably do spend a little bit more time watching Netflix than others do. I mean, but we all, it all goes back to like the good steward thing. Like, we're all supposed to be good stewards of the time that God gave us. He wants us to be putting things back into our local church, to be involved in ministries. And so I too need to pick and choose what ministries I need to be involved in, and allocating my time appropriately. So there's no difference. I could overextend myself and be involved in like 15 million ministries, but that's not what God called me to do. He called me to do a couple things and do them well, you know.
You got tricked into serving
at
a different Austin Ridge campus even.
I sure did. It's a very, very much so a pattern in my life, but it's okay. But yeah.
Good. Thanks, Sarah. Joel, what about you?
I think for me, it's just there's this ongoing evaluation that has to happen as far as where my outward focus is and what I'm good at, what has God gifted me at, where is He trying to grow me at.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff has just landed in my lap, and He's equipped me along the way to handle these things. And there's definitely, His mark has definitely been on my life in certain situations where, like, I'm typically the person who doesn't want to get messy or into drama with anybody, but it's just like, here's this great friend that you've had and built up this relationship with, and it's messy. Like, what are you going to do with it? And so, for me, it's in that evaluation is where can I grow and where can I equip myself right now? And again, I don't think that stops or changes whether you're unmarried or married. And so I think for me, the outward focus right now is where can I grow? What can I do with my time and use it? Like Sarah was saying, just like what can I be a good steward with? What time do I have? What gifts has He allowed me to have? What blessings has He poured in my life that allow me to step aside from some things and grow in different areas?
Yeah.
And for sure, that's one thing I've seen Him growing me in is just like, hey, let's here's an area of your weekend maybe. Let's dive into that a little bit more, because I've got something planned for you possibly with that, you know.
I think one of the mistakes married people make when they first get married is to stop serving everywhere because they've got to focus on like one another. And there's a good argument for kind of eliminating some things, but you gotta stay outward focused somehow. Saying your marriage is your outward focus thing is not a good plan. And so if the Lord brings this into your life, don't do that. Find something to serve together, you know, and that may be a change. Whereas some of you know, Sarah may not be able to serve at 2.5 different Austin Ridge campuses or what she's doing now. But you find a place to serve together but maintain that outward focus, because that will only make you a better husband too, a better wife one day as well. Kelly, have anything to add here?
Yeah. When I started thinking about like what outward focus means in like an unmarried perspective, I guess like we really do have like a privilege. I guess like we don't, it doesn't mean that we're not busy,
Right.
but we do like have a little bit more freedom to work around in terms of like making our own schedule. And sure, there's like obligations that we'll have to like check in on, like if we're meeting up with a friend. Obviously it doesn't mean that we drop them and we go like on a mission or something. But in terms of like, and maybe you can like pinpoint like exactly what this looks like in like a marriage, but I think we do have more opportunities to maybe go on that mission or something if we want to. We can save up our own money and go to this mission, or we can give this money to a set organization. Whereas like in a marriage, like there is like consulting with the spouse, whatever that needs to happen too.
Supposed to be.
Like there's someone that you have to consider.
Yeah.
Not to say that we can't consider like when we're unmarried, but I think there is like this requirement to consider the spouse when you're doing something. So I don't know. That's just something that I was thinking about.
I think it's just a mindset. Like I said, even just the example of like, hey, can you hop into this thing on a Friday night and serve? Like, so let's say it's a Mobile Loaves and Fishes truck run or something, and somebody needs a sub. They say, hey, can you hop in? Like, I might be able to, but I've got to make sure Haley can get home from work in time to watch our son, and that she's okay doing that solo, which, like, of course she is. But there's always this, like, I think I can, but let me check. And when you're single, you just don't have that. And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. And so, Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians 7. He says, now as a concession, not a command, I say this, I wish that all were as I myself am, meaning single. But then he says this, but each has his own gift from God, one of one kind and one of another. And so Paul identifies in Scripture that singleness is a gift that like married people need to cop to not stewarding well when we were single as well. I think what would help you guys more is to hear from more married people of saying, I know the Bible calls you three right now to see your season of life as a gift. I also know that can be tough. And I also know that you need to hear stories from me of how I didn't always steward that well. And so I think in humility we say, and the season I'm in, marriage now, is a gift. And Haley and I are probably not going to die at exactly the right time in each other's arms like the Notebook or whatever. And so one of us is probably going to be single again, and that's going to be a gift. Even though it's going to feel like hopefully a tragedy. She may feel free, I don't know. But whatever season you're in, seeing it as a gift, and with that outward focused idea of seeing it as a way to make a spiritual difference in the life of somebody else. And so y'all are at Austin Ridge. This is like an overwhelmingly family church. Like sometimes it can feel like you have to have 2.5 kids and a dog to attend here, right? And so what do you guys want married people to know about your life following Jesus as an unmarried person that they may not know?
I think we have a tendency, like, no matter what generations or life stances you're in, just kind of close ourselves off in like-minded people or people that are in the same stages. And that's one thing I would ask of married people is just like open your doors to people who don't maybe look like you, as far as like in the church, maybe it be an unmarried person or an older person, and just be there, encourage us, have relationships with us. It's easy to get plugged into kind of those who are my friends' kids with, or my kids' friends with, and I'll be friends with their parents, and kind of close yourselves off. But we need you. We need you a part of this church. And I like how Paul later on in Corinthians in chapter 12 goes on to this whole idea about the body and how it works together. And it's not this, we're over here the hand and we're by ourselves, the single people, and the married people are on this other side over here just kind of doing their own thing. We all need each other. And so that's just my thought with that. It's just open yourselves up to us, and we'll try to do likewise. And not to close ourselves off into our little niches in our groups as well.
Yeah. And I can co-sign that for all of you. All of you are involved here at significant levels in serving and belonging. And so you're not, I think sometimes singles ministries, whatever, in church get this horrible reputation. And a lot of times it is rightfully earned because it's people in this side room, kind of complaining and being bitter about why y'all aren't serving us. And that's not the heart of this question at all. And that's why you three are picked to be here, because I know that's not your heart here. Kelly, anything to add here? What do you want folks to know about what it's like to be you?
We want to know about your life, and we hope that you want to learn about ours and like how we do things, and like maybe we can babysit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
you can try an arcade anytime you want.
Love it.
You got to make the list.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's pretty loose now with the list.
Love that.
Okay, so I think it was maybe my freshman year in college. I wrote this little article in our school newspaper. I went to a small Christian conservative university. I loved it. It was great. It was exactly what I needed. But everybody got married when they were like 20 years old at this place. Okay, and so I wrote this like scathing article in our little newspaper about how people should stop getting married when they're just out of college or whatever. And then I did the exact same thing.
Yeah,
So I got married to my wife Haley 17 days after I turned 21, and she's almost 3 years older than me, so it's a little bit different. But I did the thing that I didn't want to do. But you guys are in a different stage of life, and so I'm curious, like, what is it? I'm very on your side and sympathetic, and I see you guys being faithful in this way because that didn't happen for you, right? And so as you guys watch friends that you know, or even friends at the table, like begin to pair off and get married, and you're still kind of in this waiting mode, what is that like for you? How can we encourage you? How do you stay faithful? Because that is really tough, and I am encouraged by your faith in that journey. And so what is that like for y'all?
I think for one thing, I think prayer is a huge part of it. It's tough in Austin in general, no matter what stage of life you're in. I think it's really tough for singles and people who are unmarried in any way. And so I just ask for the prayers of the church, of those people who are seeking, that we make wise decisions, that we make decisions that are kingdom based and not fleshly based. It's hard to maintain that focus when there could be seeming pressure from all different sides. Sometimes whether it be family, friends, even other church people, or just this background flesh inside of you that wants something so bad. But just pray for patience for us. Pray for humility, that we understand that this is God's plan and His design, and not ours. I think that's what keeps me grounded and centered as well. 38 years plus now of not
I
being
wasn't going to
wed.
make you give the number.
not being wed, and it's just I can't not look back at my life and not know that God's hand is on it.
Yeah.
To not feel secure, and that's like, hey, this could be not a part of His plan. I'm just going to keep my nose like focused on Him.
Yeah.
And if He's got that for my life, great. If not, like, great as well.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what He's got in store for me. So
I want to get to you, Kelly, next, but one of the things I've started doing with some of my friends that have kids, because like my mom used to do this with me, she would pray for my future spouse when I was little. And so some of my buddies do that with their kids. And it's made me pause and go, you should pray if that's God's plan for their life, because they can be a complete person without a spouse and be faithfully devoted to Him. And so I'm just shaming a lot of parents in our church on behalf of y'all to pray better and more rightly. So,
That's great.
Kelly, what about you? What's this season like for you?
Yeah, just kind of reflecting on, I guess, like my dating history or anything like that. I think I recognized, like, where I am right now, like, there was definitely an immaturity and not really understanding, like, the concept of marriage anyways. And, like, I'm kind of grateful for this unmarried season in my life, simply because, like, I didn't jump right into marriage. Well, I didn't have any opportunity to do so, but like I'm not doing it right now. Yeah. And I think looking back in my life, at least in Austin, whenever I moved to Austin, I didn't really experience like a strong church home before. And whenever I got like straight involved into the table, it was kind of like a snowball effect of growing more mature in my faith. And I'm just really thankful. Like, even though like I want a spouse, like there were definitely harder times when the need was stronger. But I think I'm just really, really thankful for the time at this moment of just really growing more in love with Christ. And that wouldn't have happened like if I don't think if I was married.
Yeah, and that will make you a better spouse.
That's what I'm hoping. And it's like, even if marriage is like not like in the cards for me, I think I just recognize that like I can trust Christ in everything that I do, and kind of going back to like just being more Christ-centered with my life. Like, I found more fulfillment in that than like seeking out like in another person. So that's just something that I've been like thankful for in current time.
That's good. Yeah. Sarah, anything here to add?
Yes. Briefly, what is the question again? I want to answer one question right.
So just, it can be difficult when you didn't marry your person like right out of college, like so many, and even so many people at our church have. And so what has it been like as those years kind of keep turning, and just that pressure to stay faithful to Christ? What's that been like for you?
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So I grew up in church, and I grew up watching a lot of my peers around me get married at 18, 19, 20, 21. And then now that I'm 28, I've seen a lot of what the damage of that has done, / people with beautiful, awesome, wonderful marriages, or people that weren't prepared, or things very nature. And so and as I grew up in that environment, I was very much so of the camp, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not even touching this with a 10-foot pole until I'm about 28, and I have like my head screwed on my shoulders.
Right on schedule.
Yeah. Now I'm like, oh snap. Shouldn't have said that out loud. But I think just I'm so thankful for having that mindset and for my parents supporting me in that. But like, yeah, sure, do the thing, be with God, or not be with God, but like, follow God, do all the things.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, I can look back at different things that have happened in my life or different trials that I've been through and seeing how God has used those specific instances and like brought me closer to him and taught me some things that I would have never have learned if I had someone to lean on and to just like bury myself into, because that is my tendency. So I'm just looking back, I'm super thankful to have those instances that I can be like, thank God for the way that I was able to rely on you and to trust you and for you to be my support instead of having that be another person, which is definitely what I would have done. So, yeah, to answer the question.
That's good. You nailed it. That's great. Yeah.
Cool.
We'll end with this, but I just want to tell you guys thank you, not for even being here. I want to thank you for being the kind of caliber of people that can sit around this table and have this conversation, and for all the things that you mean to me and our ministry. Like Sarah, you lead worship almost every week with us. Joel, you're a leader and have been for a while. Kelly, you let me talk you into joining our leadership team a long time ago, and
Yeah, you did.
still are on table staff. And Kelly, I found a note the other day that you wrote Amos before he was born at our baby shower after we prayed for this kid, that guy we didn't think God was going to bring to our lives, and he did. And y'all were with us through this whole process. And so you guys add a lot of value to my life here and to our church, and I'm really grateful for you. And so thank you guys so much for being here.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for having us.